104.5 The Team. We're joined by ESPN's George Sedano of the Sedano Show. Of course, 9 to 11 right here on 104.5 The Team. Follow him on Twitter at Sedano ESPN. George, I was hoping for one of the best games of the year last night when Golden State took on San Antonio, but it was just a beating. What happened? Is Golden State that much better than San Antonio?
Look, I think Golden State is the best team in the NBA. I think they're a historically good team, but I will say this. I think that Golden State will be the champs again. They'll repeat. But what you saw from San Antonio was somewhat uncharacteristic. I was actually having this conversation on the NBA Lockdown podcast within the last hour with Amin Hassan and Israel Gutierrez, and Amin brought up some good points, which is you saw some stuff from the Spurs you don't normally get. The Spurs are not normally the team that has 6 turnovers basically in the first half of the first quarter. That generally is not them. 25 turnovers for the game. I will say this. I also feel like they did some really un-Spurs-like things on defense. They've been the best team defending the three this year, and they've also allowed the least amount of threes this year. And they did some stuff where it's almost like they didn't recognize that they were playing against Steph Curry, which felt weird because they're so smart and usually so ahead of the curve, where they were going under screens at times, and he was just shooting wide-open threes. It just was unlike what you should do against the Warriors. You know that you're going to face them. They can pull the trigger from anywhere, beyond the three-point line. And in Steph's case, he hit a couple that were, somewhere between 27 and 30 feet away.
In the parking lot, I think.
Yeah, and you have to know that going in. And the fact that they didn't defend that the way that you would have thought they would have was a bit surprising to me.
George, is Tim Duncan, is his presence that big a deal for the Spurs? If he played, is there any difference in last night's outcome?
I mean, is it 30 points? No, maybe it's 20 points. I mean, I don't think there's that big a difference. I think where we'll see how good these teams are matched is when they go to San Antonio, basically a place where the Warriors have only won a couple of times, basically over the last 10 or 12 years. So including one playoff game back in, I think it was the 2012-13 season. They actually could have stolen both games in San Antonio that postseason, but they didn't. They lost the one in basically an epic collapse in overtime. But that, to me, is where this series will be decided. Do I think the Warriors will adjust eventually and make the proper adjustments? Yeah, of course they are, because they've basically been the team of this generation. They're the Patriots version of the NBA, or in the NBA. So I do think the series, if they play in the playoffs, which is what we all anticipate and hope for, I think will be a little closer. But I do think that I'm curious. I do think that this game in San Antonio will likely be a lot closer when they play again here over the next several weeks. And I think that will be something that determines this series more, how they play in San Antonio. If they get beat again in San Antonio, then all of a sudden all bets are off and the NBA season isn't really as interesting anymore.
George Sedano, you can hear him here weekdays, 9 to 11 right here on 104.5 The Team. The champion was on the court last night, though, right? There's no East Coast team that's going to come in there, Eastern Conference, and win this thing this year.
I don't think so. I mean, barring something crazy happening out west, for example, an injury to someone on Golden State like Steph or Draymond, and then maybe all of a sudden the Spurs or the Thunder sneak in, then maybe that opens the door a little bit more for Cleveland, potentially, because I think they're going to be the representative out of the East. To me, that's kind of a foregone conclusion at this point. So do I think the Cavs can beat the Spurs? Probably not, but I give them a better shot to beat the Spurs than I sure as hell would against the Warriors. And then subsequently the same with the Thunder. I don't think they'd beat the Thunder, but I give them a better chance to beat the Thunder than the Spurs or the Warriors at this point.
All right, now we've gone about as far as we can asking real basketball questions without asking you what's going on with Blake Griffin and the Clippers.
I mean, dude, your guess is as good as mine. I sure as hell don't know what happened there. I mean, all I know is whatever we've read, which is that he got into a fight with the equipment staff guy. Allegedly, they're friends. We don't know the backstory as to why they got into a fight. But, I'm not going to recklessly speculate about it, but my guess is something had to have been said that was some sort of trigger word where all of a sudden that just kind of led to a misunderstanding of sorts. I don't know if we've all been there, but I've seen it. Certainly, I've seen it evolve where two guys that are friends are having a conversation and over dinner, and things escalate because somebody hits a sensitive spot, and all of a sudden it's fists are flying. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but I certainly have seen it over the years, so I'm just guessing that something like that may have happened.
Is there any chance that this is what gets us back to raspy Doc Rivers? I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know what Doc's going to say. I think I'm curious as everyone to see what he says. That's actually not a terrible Doc Rivers impersonation, and that honestly could also double as a Stan Van Gundy impersonation, too.
How do the Clippers react from this? Are they going to trade Blake Griffin? Do they bring in somebody else to take his place while he's out? What is their next move?
I mean, I don't think they're trading Blake Griffin. I think Doc's all in with this team. If anyone, the guy they should trade is Chris Paul, because he's 30 or 31 years old at this stage. He's got a year and a half left on his deal, basically. So you're not going to have more value for anyone than you would for him at this particular moment. But I don't see them doing either of those things. They are committed to this team for better or worse, and they're going to run this thing, and whether it's into the ground or to a championship, for better or worse.
George Sedano, you can hear here weekdays 9 to 11 right here on 104.5 The Team. Follow him on Twitter at Sedano ESPN. Sedano, the DeMarcus Cousins just goes off last night. This guy's name is always in the trade mix. Like, is he going to finish out as a king, or is he going to take that amazing talent somewhere else?
See, I never have understood the rumors about him because Vivek Ranady, the owner of the Sacramento Kings, loves him. Like no other owner I think I've seen loves a player. It's really weird. Maybe I guess Mark Cuban and Dirk Nowitzki have that kind of love for each other and affection for each other. Now, you know what? I take that back because I don't know if DeMarcus Cousins has that affection for Vivek, but I sure as hell know that Vivek has that affection for DeMarcus. So I don't know why those rumors even sprout because I just don't see that happening. They've fired several coaches already to keep DeMarcus Cousins there. I don't see where he gets dealt. But look, man, here's the thing about him. We're now seeing his game mature to a point where we're just like, wow, he's hit the dominant level where he is one of the best players in the game. And I credit George Karl for that because, and if you remember, it wasn't that long ago, we're only several months removed from the whole notion that DeMarcus Cousins and his agent didn't want him playing for George Karl because of the system, where in essence it's actually made him a better player. So I find that whole scenario kind of fascinating. But yeah, man, he's hit this crazy level of how good he is. Like he's fulfilling his potential on the court. I guess the question that everyone has is how is he from a maturity standpoint? Where is he right now? Is he a guy that can elevate teammates around him? Are his teammates even good enough around him to be elevated? Right now, they're in the 8th spot in the Western Conference, but there's a bunch of teams jumbled up there for that 8th spot in the Western Conference. I like them as the team to come out there in the 8th spot, but obviously all that implies that they're going to be healthy. But I think he's good enough to carry them at least into the postseason, a la what Anthony Davis did to the Pelicans last year. Tonight
we've got Knicks and Thunders, all eyes on that. Kevin Durant calls Kristaps Porzingis a unicorn. How do you describe our favorite 7'3" rookie?
Man, he is. Listen, I was on the bandwagon with him in the draft process as everyone was trying to compare him to Darko or whatever, which was ridiculous. But I didn't envision this. Like he's made this adjustment that is really beyond his years as far as how he handles himself. I was actually just talking to Mike Breen yesterday on the show. Obviously, he's as familiar with the Knicks as anyone. And I asked him that same question, and he just said that his maturity, I mean, he acts like a veteran, man, and nothing phases him. And sure, are there aspects to his game that need to grow some? Sure, there are certainly aspects to his game that need to grow, and I think physically he'll mature into his body some. But the athleticism, the length, and the maturity, and even the basketball smarts, man, like, he's got him. Like, I don't think there's any question. High basketball IQ and a guy that has all the tools to be a star in this league for a really long time. So, yeah, I mean, he is the rare player that we've seen at that size that has both the athleticism and the shooting and all the different aspects of defense, because we've seen guys that have come over from Europe who can do a lot of different things. For example, Dirk, right? Dirk is an excellent offensive player. He's great in the post. He's great outside. Defensively, you know, even at his best, he was just okay. He was never great. He was a decent rebounder, not a great rebounder. But Porzingis has the potential to be, even better than Dirk Nowitzki was. Now, will he be that guy? I don't know. Look, there's a lot to be said. Dirk Nowitzki is arguably the greatest foreign-born player that never played college ball in the United States that played in the NBA. So there's still a long way to go because the kid's only a rookie, but the ceiling is just insane.
104.5 The Team, joined by George Sedano, part of the NBA Lockdown podcast. Now, is Porzingis, I mean, we've got Durant calling him a unicorn. Is he the kind of bait that gets a guy like Kevin Durant when he becomes a free agent to New York?
Oh, man, I don't know. I mean, are you going to get Carmelo to commit to playing the 4 the rest of the way and just play Porzingis at the 5? I think that's the bigger issue more than anything else. I think Durant, if he leaves Oklahoma City, which is still a big if, I still think he goes to the Lakers, man. Like, I've been on that thing for 2 years saying that I think that's where he goes. I eventually think Russ follows him there. I think that if there's any team in the East, I think maybe the Heat could convince him to come to Miami. But I don't think that's going to happen either. I think that's the longest of long shots. But I think if he leaves Oklahoma City, which is where I think he'll stay, I think he goes to the Lakers. Okay,
Sedano, then as a long-suffering Knicks fan, who can I hope for if I'm not going to get KD?
Look, man, Nicholas Batum is a perfect fit for any team, I think. I know he's dinged up right now, but go look at his numbers. He may be the second-best free agent in this crop of free agents coming up in 2016. He is a guy who is a potential triple-double machine night in and night out. He can give you 16, 17 points a night. He can give you, 7, 8, 9, 10 assists any given night, and same for rebounds. So I think he's a guy, and defensively he's obviously very good too. And at 27 years old, I think that's the type of guy I would look at. And I know people will say, well, he's a B-level talent free agent-wise. Yeah, I don't know if he's B-level or not. I think he fits a lot of different systems, and he certainly fits today's NBA, what you want a guy to be kind of a point-forward type thing. And the good thing about him is he can play the 2, the 3, or even in a small ball situation can play the 4, so he may be able to fit well with Carmelo. He'll move the ball around, which will get guys like Carmelo and Porzingis looks. I think Nicholas Batum should be on every team's radar in this free agency period.
George Sedano, hear him here weeknights 9 to 11, and, of course, catch him on the NBA Lockdown podcast. It's the podcast I listen to, and then my friends actually think I know something about the NBA, so thank you for giving me information, and thanks for joining us, Sedano.
All right, bud. Anytime, guys.